Somebody just cheated the internet. I'm sorry.
So if you want to go to Google Classroom and follow along, you can, or you can just look up here. But these words are in under classwork, so you were able to find them on your own if you need to as well. Under poetry terms. Alright, so these are poetry terms to know. The first one is stanza. So your stanza is like a paragraph in poetry. It gives you different breaks. So it transitions just like a paragraph from one topic to another. It should be used to help transition from one topic to the next. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Have you ever seen like that where there's like double spaces in a poem? So that is called stanza. Okay, so there are two types of poems, free verse, and then there is rhyming. Well, actually three kinds, because you can also have a structured poem, which is like a haiku, which is like 5, 7, 5 syllables. If you ever did that when you were a kid, it's still a structured poem, but it's not rhyming, and it would not be free verse either. So you have free verse, you have structured poem, you have rhyming. But the two that we're going to be tested over will be free verse and rhyming. So free verse means that it doesn't have a structure and it doesn't have to rhyme. So if something happens to rhyme in there, that doesn't make it a rhyming poem. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know the difference. Like if every other line is rhyming, then that's a rhyming poem. But if two lines happen to rhyme, then that isn't necessarily a rhyming poem. It's just a free verse poem that happened to have that at the end. Okay, so poems do not have to just be every other line rhyme. They can also have different patterns within them where there's some rhyming as well. And when we're talking about rhyming in poems, we're talking about end rhymes, like nice and mice. So the rhyme scheme is a pattern of those end rhymes. So each new sound at the end of a line is given a letter. We start with A in the alphabet, and that's how we indicate it. So let me show you an example of this. So this one here is pretty standard with what you might think. So it's nice mice, so A and A, rhyme, right? Fat and cat, B, B, right? But then it might change up a little bit where you're going to have dice, doesn't rhyme with hat. So then go on to the next letter of the alphabet. Dice and lives, they go together, so I put an A there. Win doesn't match anything, so it's a C. And I have rolled and pulled, which is D and D. Do you kind of see how you label that rhyme scheme? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on from this, we go to imagery, which we've already talked a little bit about. Imagery is using either your senses or figurative language in order to give us a description or a better understanding of something. So we've talked about sight, smell, taste, sound, touch. All can help you. I'm not going to go through all this. If you want to look at it, you can. But we've kind of already talked about this a little bit. So then also we have simile and metaphor to help us with imagery. Okay, so these are the things that help us to build pictures. Okay, so a simile is comparing two unlike things using the words like or as. So if I just say my refrigerator is like cold, well, it is cold, so that's not really a simile, even though I said it's like cold. Well, yeah, but you know, if I said my freezer is like the Arctic, then that's two different things, right? Because my freezer is not the Arctic. So it's two different things. So that's okay to do, and that makes a simile. Metaphor is exactly the same, except for you don't use the words like or as. You're just making a comparison of two things. This happens a lot in poetry, and as we look through a poem today, we'll definitely see this pop up. But poetry has a lot of metaphors. Like when we started to develop the test, we struggled with finding a poem that just had a metaphor in it, because there were lots. Okay, so again, two different things. My little brother is a monster. Okay, he's not really a monster. He wasn't born like one eye. He wasn't hairy. He just acts bad, right? That's what I'm assuming here. Okay, I'm not assuming when you say my little brother's a monster that like legitimately he was born with like all kinds of defects and like looks like Sully. You know, I don't think that that's what you're talking about when you say that, right? So they're two different things, but I get what you're saying, right? I mean, it means he has bad behavior, right? Right. We got this. Okay. So then we have that personification again, and that's giving inanimate objects or animals human-like characteristics. Okay, so saying that the tree danced in the wind, trees don't dance, they aren't even alive, they just move when the wind blows them, right? Okay, now I told you that my cat and I had a conversation this morning. That's giving my cat human qualities, right? And we really didn't, but he does talk. He does this like where he's very vocal for a cat. If you've ever seen a cat that's really vocal, my cat, like when you wake up, he starts talking to you, like, but he's not really talking. Like, I have no idea what he's saying, right? Other than he probably wants to be fed. But like, I don't really know what he's saying, right? Like, he could be really thinking something else, and I'm just giving him food and he eats it because he's like, well, food's all right. I don't really know, right? I just assume. Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay. So a hyperbole is an exaggerated claim. It's when you say something to give something meaning, but like I am so tired I could sleep for 50 years.
Oh, so good.
Okay? Like, I can't really sleep for 50 years. I could probably sleep for another 10, 12 hours and be good, but probably not 50 years, right? So, do you see the difference between saying, I could sleep for 50 years, when really I'm probably could get a good 10 hours sleep and be good, right? But that's what a hyperbole is, because nobody really is going to sleep for 50 years unless they're in a coma, right? It's raining cats and dogs. That means it's raining really hard. If it was really raining cats and dogs, that would be a problem. Cars would be dented. People would get crushed. It would be a bad thing.
I'd go get me a free cat.
It would hit you in the head. You would it would probably kill you. If this was really happening. Like, do you know that a penny dropped from like the principal building could kill somebody because of the rate of acceleration? A penny. So think about a dog coming from the sky. It'd be killing people. It's not really raining cats and dogs, right? It's taking an eternity to write this paper, which means it's taking a really long time, right? I could eat an entire horse. That's disgusting, but okay. I guess you're hungry. Is that it? I don't think so. I thought there's more. What's going on? Yep, there is more. Okay, so we have the onomatopoeia, and that is a word that sounds just like you hear it. It's spelled how you hear it. So like sigh, right? Or huff, or hiss, or crackle, or grunt, pop. These are onomatopoeias. They're sounds, but we're spelling the sound out, right? So there, that's the visual, the pow. And if you hit your hand, you can hear that, right? You can hear like a pow sound. You hear it? It really happens. Okay, so the mood is the feeling of the poem. It's how you feel. It's supposed to invoke some feelings in you and vibes. This can be different for different people because you might connect with something. Like a poem about somebody's grandma dying, you might kind of feel sad about that, but somebody might feel like super like emotional or super depressed if their grandma just died, right? So they might feel a different feeling, but they're similar in relation. You're not gonna say like read a poem about somebody's grandma dying and be like, yeah, that made me happy. Because if so, that's something wrong, right? Like you shouldn't be happy by that poem. Yeah? Okay. And the last thing is author's purpose. I've had people write me a paragraph about what the author's purpose is. You should not. It's one of three things. It's entertain, inform, or persuade. It should not be a paragraph, right? So, to entertain me is, it's meant to make me happy. It's meant to just give me something to do. To inform is giving me those facts and the information. To persuade is to convince me of something. Usually, if it didn't give me talk to me about facts or anything like that, then I know it's not informed. If it didn't try to convince me of anything, then I know it's entertained. People always want to think, oh, it didn't entertain me. Well, but that was the point. Nobody sits and like, I think I'm gonna write the most boring poem I could ever write in my entire life. Okay? Like, that's not the purpose. Nobody does that. We thought it was good, even if it's not.
Somebody wrote about my life.
Is that boring?
Yes.
All right. So these are the basic premise of what we're going to be learning and working through with our poems. So when you go to study for your test, or even go to take your test, because we're already taking them at home, this can help you. So does everybody see where this is, understand that they can find it?
What's the test?
At the end of the 3-week cycle. So, well, it's like 8, whatever. It'll be that week of it's 9, 10, 11, so it'll be in the 12 cycle.
Wait, what?
I know, because it's not weeks, it's like 4 days. So it'll be in 12th cycle. Right now we're in the 9th cycle.
So it'll be in 3 weeks.
Kind of. But not really, because it's only 4 days.
So like the end of the month.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get there. Alright. So, we are going to be looking at Introduction to Poetry. And there is an assignment that we're going to do with this. As we're reading the poem, you're going to be looking for metaphors and similes. So, I'm going to go ahead and let Billy Collins read you his poem. I can put the closed captioning up so you can just see it if you like, as he goes through. And then I'll talk through it too, in case anybody wondered. Except we're probably not going to do your slide. Come on.
I don't need this no more. I don't need this anymore. Don't need that, don't need that.
Introduction.
Okay.
We're in English, right?
Yeah. Are you guys ready for the poem?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
I'll put this up here.
Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means.
Okay. So even though this is exactly what he wants me not to do, I'm going to go ahead and talk you through the poem. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. So it says, I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide. So a color slide is a kaleidoscope. Have you ever seen one of those? You hold it up and there's like colors in it and you move it around and it looks different.
I love those.
Okay, it's like got little different pieces in it. And when you look, you don't really see anything, just different shapes, right? And so why he's comparing that to a poem is like, you should be able to feel and get out of it whatever you get. Like, it shouldn't be what other people want to tell you to get from it, right? So you just see what you see, and that's okay. Or press an ear against its hive. So a beehive, again, makes kind of a buzzing noise, but you've actually listened to a beehive. There's no, like, rhythmic. It just does something, right? And so, again, it's just doing your own thing, feeling your own thing. It's really should be individual to the person reading what they're getting from it, okay? And then it says, I drop a mouse in a poem and watch him probe his way out. And so the image that you should be getting here is like if you've ever seen a mouse in a maze, where they put it in there, and then it has to try to figure out its way out. But again, when you go through a maze, there's more than one way to get through it, right? And you might have to turn around and go a different way and go back another way. So it's like it's exploring it at your own pace. Not everyone can just walk right through the maze exactly the way it was meant to be done, right? And so that's the same thing. You're feeling it out for yourself. Or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for light. So eventually you're gonna find light, but everybody finds it at a different rate, at a different pace, right? You'll figure out what it means to you or where the light is. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. Again, if you remember water skied, the hardest part is getting up. So once you're up, you don't really have to worry about much. Right? You just keep going unless they stop the boat, or you're gonna hit a boat or something like that. But pretty much, you just enjoy it once you're up. Okay? So that's what he's saying. You just enjoy it. Just enjoy the poem. Is what he's telling you to do. But then we turn from kind of lighthearted, like, I just want you to love the poem, enjoy it, explore it yourself too. But all they want to do is tie a poem to a chair with a rope. Okay? So when we're tying somebody to a chair, we're usually trying to get information from them, right? Well, I don't do this. But if you did that, you'd be trying to get information from them, right? So it's like, what does this poem mean? Tell me right now. Okay? That's what people do with poems. And torture a confession out of it. Okay? So again, we're going to try to get it to tell us who it is. What are you? What do you need so I can move on? Okay? They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. Okay? So again, it's like tell me what you mean so I can get on with it. Okay? So there's some things you're going to do here. It says find one metaphor above and highlight in yellow. Okay? So one thing that I could do is I say drop a mouse in a poem and watch him probe his way out. And so I could then go up. If you don't know how to highlight, it's this little button here. You find highlight color. You can do that. I'm going to do that because mine will do it to everybody's. And so then I come down here and it says, what is being compared? So a poem to a mouse being in a maze, right? That's what I'm going to put down here. Those are the two things being compared. Does that make sense?
Can we use that example?
Yep, you can use that and then keep working through. If you have a question as you go through, feel free to ask. Okay?